Hello and welcome to the Farm Traveler Podcast. This is episode 20, and our guests today are Charlotte and James from Vine Farm Dairy in the United Kingdom. They are our first international guests on the podcast, so it's super cool to kind of learn from somebody in a different country what's going on in their neck of the woods in terms of agriculture. So at Vine Farm Dairy, they have something really, really cool. It's a milk vending machine. So people in their local community can bring in glass bottles and fill up milk from the vending machine and take it home. But they're saving distribution costs, transportation costs. They're saving numerous bottles of plastic being used for just for consumers being able to take home milk. It's such a really cool idea, a milk vending machine. We're going to talk about that, some other really cool stuff going on at Vine Farm Dairy. It's a really cool conversation we're going to have. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks for listening. All right, well, welcome to the Farm Traveler Podcast. Charlotte and James from Vine Farm Dairy. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Very good, thanks very much. Nice to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks for being on. So I found you guys on Instagram. You have a dairy farm, which is a really cool thing that we'll talk about. So talk us through like how your farm got started. Y'all are fifth generation farmers, or it's a fifth generation farm. So tell us about the farm's background.
Yeah, it's been my family farm. So we're now the fifth generation taking it on. We've been dairy farmers all the way along. I think my granddad did a bit of sheep and things like that, but we concentrate on just the dairy now. We supply a cheese dairy, a local cheese dairy in the area that mainly makes the Stilton cheese, which is a blue vein cheese. And I know that they're calling them burger melts, I think, that they're trying to sell in America. That's been the latest sort of thing that they're trying to actually push, to be honest. So I don't know whether you've seen them anywhere or not, but they're trying to sort of get a Stilton cheese or a blue cheese in a cheese slice, which isn't an easy thing to do apparently because of the thinness of them or what have you. But we've been supplying that, and they do blended cheeses as well. So I returned from university just after the millennium, and my dad was very much a black and white sort of Holstein high yielding farmer, and since I returned, we've basically tried to get more money for the milk without sort of feeding for it. We've done a lot of trying to breed for it, so we started crossbreeding the cows when I returned, and we've now sort of settled on a Jersey, Montbéliard, which is a region on the French-Swiss border. But one of these
quite a big cheese making region there, and their milk's known for having like very high in protein.
On those sort of cows. So the Holstein, the Jersey, and the Montbéliard is our three-way crossbreed at the moment. We have a herd of 400 cows. There's always we calve all year round. We don't go for a block calving. Again, our dairy can handle the milk as a pretty flat profile now. So we've gone down that route, and the cows are sort of doing about 8,000 litres each in a year would be our yield. And again, since we've been this is the first year we've had the average of the protein at pretty much 3.5%. I don't know again whether you guys do it in kilos. I'm not sure on that stat, I'm afraid, but the protein has been 3.5% and the fat has been 4.3 for the last year at sort of an 8,000 yield. And again, the more protein we can send to the dairy, the more cheese they can make. So hopefully, as a farmer-owned cooperative dairy, it's the better or the more money they make, the more money we should make, hopefully. So it seems to work pretty well.
That's pretty good. Yeah. So what's the local dairy industry like there? I know here in the United States, there have been a lot of dairies kind of going under. So what's the dairy industry like for you guys in the UK right now?
It's an interesting time, I think, sort of worldwide at the moment in the dairy industry. Rising veganism and things like that. Sort of local wise, we're near Long Clawson Dairy. Stilton cheese can only be produced in Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. So for us, location is really important. And we're very proud to come from this area and proud to supply Long Clawson Dairy.
I think if it wasn't for that cheese dairy in our area, I don't think there would be half as many dairy cows in this area we're at, with around Melton certainly, and nationally I think it's a very interesting picture of there was sort of 4 major dairies producing liquid milk for sort of supermarkets and shops over here. That's ended up with Muller basically buying out Wiseman's company, or they were a long established liquid supplying firm, and Arla has now bought sort of a lot of the other Dairy Crests and other major brands. So I would say most contracts over here, unless you are with a small dairy or sort of spot selling or making your own products, you've pretty much only got 2 choices, unfortunately, now in the UK of who you'd like to sell your milk to.
Have y'all seen like a rise of different types of milk, like almond milk or soy milk? Because over here, a ton of people are kind of getting away from regular milk and going to rice milk, almond milk, just various types of milk that aren't milk, but they're milk substitutes. So has there been something kind of like that happen over there in the UK as well?
Yes,
we've seen there has certainly been a rise of it, but equally at the same time, we're again, it's that thing of being not sheltered, but sort of away from city life. It's very much a social media thing, but actually when you do go out and buy, the vast majority, it's still such a small percentage of the market. I'm not sure if it's more of the companies doing good promotion about it rather than how much they are actually selling over here. I wouldn't suggest that it's taken off, but there are certainly I mean, it's the thing about showing people around our farm and why we like to connect with the Vine Farm Dairy side of things as well, to really, you know, tell people where the milk comes from, what happens on the farm. We had for example, we had an open farm. We joined the Open Farm Sunday for the first time, which is a big charity sort of organised event.
It's a national organisation here, where any farm can open their doors. It's always the same date of the year, and people can go and visit all these different farms. There's a website, you can type in your address and find all the local farms in your area that will be open. And we did that for the first time this year, and it was really popular, and it was a really good way of connecting people to the farm. And I think it's undeniable that oat milks and almond milks and things like that, there is a rise in popularity, and I don't think we can deny that. Equally, I think
whether it's sustained will be interesting. It's sort of the first 2 years, I think, of the sort of, well, certainly this year the veganuary and whatnot has certainly picked up a bit, but then that goes very quiet and disappears again. So
I think social media has a very powerful voice, and it can often seem, particularly in veganuary and things like that, it can seem like farmers and farms are being targeted and can quite often seem a bit overwhelming, but I think the reality is still quite different. And I know certainly from opening our vending machine, which we'll talk about later in more detail, I know, you know, there's so many people that still support traditional dairy farms and still will always drink dairy products and
just the product, yeah. You know, it is a quality nutritional product. Milk is. It was called the original fast food or whatever it is for the amount of goodness that it contains. So again, with actually speaking to people and connecting with people, like on the Open Farm Sundays or having this morning, we've had a load of Australians touring that are at university, going around the farm. When you actually talk to them and say what happens on a farm, and people actually see that, you know, I'm quite happy for people to make their own judgments of what they believe or not with animal welfare. But you know, we're as I say to anyone, we're not in it for suffering animals. We're in it for those animals enjoying their lives as much as possible.
I think I read a stat the other day. It was from the National Farmers Union in the UK, saying that 98% of British people still eat or drink British dairy products, and I think sometimes it can often seem like vegans have a bigger voice than they, you know, sort of, again, through the social media thing. However, I still think there's an overwhelming majority of people that will continue to support the dairy industry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you guys are able to use social media and even have people come out there to visit your farm to kind of see what's going on. I've definitely seen a rise in people on social media that are kind of showcasing, especially people in the dairy industry. They're kind of showcasing daily life on the farm, what their cows do every day, just to kind of
Yeah,
give consumers, hey, this is what our cows do. This is how we treat our cows. They're happy. They're healthy. Don't worry
yeah,
about them. They're fine. So that's really cool.
yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about your vending machine. This is such a really cool idea. So you have a milk vending machine that people can just come to, bring a glass bottle, and they can fill it up. So tell us like how you came up with that idea and kind of how it's been since you incorporated the milk vending machine.
So we saw a couple of years ago. We saw it was actually on Countryfile, which is a big BBC country show TV program that's on, and we saw a few years ago there was a farm down in Suffolk that had set up a vending machine, and we thought it was a really good idea and we thought it could work. James has always wanted to do some form of processing on the farm, and we originally thought about maybe setting up an ice cream business, but this financially we probably weren't quite ready to do that. It was quite a big investment. We saw the vending machine and we thought that could work really well. And we visited another vending machine in East Yorkshire, which is about 2 hours north of where we are, and that was going really well. And Becky, who owns it's called Cherry View Milk, and Becky was really lovely to us, really good to us, gave us lots of advice and help, and we were sort of inspired really to set up a vending machine on the farm. So last September we launched. We put a shed on the farm, which is basically within walking distance of the village, so villagers can walk to it. We've also got parking so people can. And people do drive from quite far away to come and get the milk as well. We've got a really good village, a really strong local community, and people are encouraged to either buy a glass bottle. We do have a few plastic bottles, but we're hoping to go plastic free very soon. And we also we encourage people to buy glass, and also encourage people to bring their own container. And they can come up to the vending machine, and it's £1 a litre, and they can fill up with milk. So our milk is pasteurised. It is pasteurised, but that's all we've done to it. So it's unhomogenised. So the cream would still separate on the top on the morning how it should be. We've done no other industrial processing to it apart from pasteurisation.
No, we just thought it was a bit. I would say I always want to do some sort of processing at the farm, and it seemed a great way of sort of getting into that without the massive outlay of cash to be able to set the business up, and also sort of again one of those things of connecting people with where their food comes from. So we have our cows behind the shed where the milk's sold, so all the kids and everything sort of walk out and can see, and so, walking out saying thank you cows and all that sort of business, and it's just great to see the community using it, and again with the single-use plastics all over the media, certainly over here at the moment, they're really pushing the non-plastic side of things, and again I think I can't remember the year or how long ago it was, but I think it was sort of the rise of the supermarkets. It went from 95% of milk in the UK being in glass bottles from sort of milk rounds and things to literally the other way around, and 95% of milk being in plastic bottles and sold in supermarkets within about 5 or 10 years, I think it was. So it was a massive change at that time, and again now it seems to like certain things doing a big loop back round to what it used to be. And again, with the unhomogenizing, it's we try to explain it. This is how milk should be. Milk should separate. And again, with the Long-Clawson supply, it is slightly creamier. But equally, if you don't like the cream on the top, you can shake the bottle. But we and incorporate it back into the milk. But we hear good stories at the milk shed when we're up there and seeing people filling up of their, saying that their kids and whatnot are getting up a bit earlier to get to the milk first, so they can get the cream on their cereals rather than just the standard milk. So it's certainly something that's but people are realising and getting back to sort of whole foods and more wholesome foods without being over processed. And again, a lot of stories about as earlier in the day when they've had our milk, which should make sense, as the unhomogenizing means the fats and the proteins should break down slower and keep you fuller for longer and those sort of things.
I think also, like, we've sold nearly 6,000 glass bottles since we started, and that was one of our key things. We really wanted to reduce plastic waste, and we've been amazed really just how people really have taken on the glass bottles, and we've sold nearly 6,000 glass bottles, and people are reusing them daily. So I can't quite work out the maths, but we've saved tens of thousands of plastic bottles from going to landfill, and that was one of our big objectives, and we're absolutely overwhelmed with how people have taken that on, and really proud of how that's taken off.
Yeah, y'all should be very proud of that. That's so cool. I mean, you're solving not only the plastic issue, but also distribution costs and just transportation of milk to go get it processed and then get delivered. That's really cool that you're just kind of putting it there and letting the village people just kind of come and collect the milk. That's really cool. I mean, obviously you guys have seen a lot of beneficial impact for the community, so it seems like a lot of people really like that.
Yeah, and I think doing things like Open Farm Sunday, and we've had quite a few school visits, our village preschool and University of Nottingham have been quite a few times with their agriculture students, and I think it's so important to us to connect people back to farmers and to local produce. And I think, obviously supermarkets, the rise of the supermarkets, and people have just become really disconnected with food. And I think, again, that was a big aim of ours, to connect people back to the farm, back to the cows, and they know that those cows, like as I say, where they've been milked, there's 0 food miles. We're literally talking meters, not miles, from the parlour to the shed. And I think it's just a really nice way of people knowing where their food comes from again, because I think we're so used to supermarkets and just not really realising where the produce in the supermarket comes from. And milk could have travelled hundreds and thousands of miles before it even reaches you, and it could be sort of 2 weeks old. That's the other thing. Whereas our milk is, it's less than 24 hours old, and people are getting it direct.
Yeah, that's funny. Over here, we kind of have a saying that people are so misinformed about their food now that kids just think that chocolate milk comes from chocolate cows. So, yeah, but that's so cool. You're bringing it to them, but you're also kind of educating them about the process, about local farming and all that really cool stuff. So that's really cool.
It's very funny you should actually say that. On one of the comments from, the line that we're all bringing out now from the Open Farm Sunday was one member of the public said to our herdsman, so what is the difference with the brown cows? Do they make the chocolate milk? So it was you couldn't quite make it up on certain ones, and that was a fairly elderly person, I think, that didn't realise that. So it is incredible how food has not sort of lost its way with where it is. I mean, it was a small scandal last year. One of our major supermarkets resorted to giving sort of their certain ones of their products fake sort of friendly farm names. So it had no actual relation to where it was coming from. So the farmers sort of kicked up a bit, saying, you can't put this name on these sort of products when it has no relation to actually the origin of the product. So it's an interesting one that they obviously must have picked up on, that people want to know or feel like they're buying a sort of local product. I mean, we've seen a rise of a fair amount of farm shops over here in the UK. I'd say it's that thing of less food waste, and you probably have to pay a bit more for the food, but you probably, like you say, the nutritional value of it is higher than being an over processed food that's bought from a cardboard box. So it's been really interesting to speak to the public more since we've started the vending machine, and seeing what they actually believe about food, or what happens with it. And again, when you sort of can say, well, this milk was literally milk, or again with the open days, you can say, well, this milk will be available to buy tomorrow from that machine. They appreciate that, and the value in having it that fresh.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, kudos on you guys for not laughing once that person asked if the brown cows gave the chocolate milk. I mean, to people in the agriculture. Go ahead.
James and I went there, but I think our herdsman Jack probably had a good laugh to himself, and I don't think I could have kept a straight face.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I would have been the same. I mean, kudos on them for asking that question, because people in the ag industry, it's just a funny question. Like, obviously, it's not chocolate milk from a chocolate cow, but other people are like, well, obviously, the brown cow has to give out brown milk. I mean, that's obviously how it's got to work, right?
Yeah.
That always reminds me of the scene from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where they went by this one room, and whatever, the Oompa Loompas or whatever, they were whipping one of the cows, and one of the kids says, "Oh, that's whipped cream."
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more about kind of some successes and failures you guys have experienced since you took over your parents' farm? Like, from the moment you took it over to when you started the vending machine, what were some really great successes and some failures that you had along the way that kind of helped you kind of grow the business and taught you something?
My parents were very much not really wanting to invest too much in the farm until they knew either myself. My brother Richard also works at the farm, so it was very sort of an underinvested invested farm when we returned from university. So we didn't have a blank check, certainly, but it needed, if we wanted to carry on with it, it needed investment, and as ever, that comes with a lot of risk. So we did install a new parlour and cubicle housing to sort of bring them up to date first. Whether we got the parlour completely right, we ended up with a 40-point rotary parlour that probably had more electrics on it than it needed, and that was probably as being young people and thinking, oh, everything we can do it through a computer, whereas you need that herd management, you still very much need that eye over livestock, and that daily sort of checks that our herdsman does a great job of anyhow. But it was overall with that, it was a case of then with the breeding of the cows, how to carry on with that, and also get that into, I mean, again, my dad was very much a sort of open the gate up when it was all right to graze and let them out all over the farm, whereas we're not a New Zealand system, but we're very much have bred a cow to make more out of the grass than before. So we're pretty happy with the three-way crossbreds of the Jerseys, Holsteins, and Montbelliards. They're good, strong cows that do like to graze grass. So we've paddocked all our fields up, put a sort of reused some concrete railway sleepers to make a runway, basically, or a cow highway down the middle of the farm and down the middle of the paddocks. And so we have got multiple access to multiple grass, and trying to we send them back to fresh grass every day, weather permitting. Again, we're on heavy clay soil, so it can be a bit tricky if it's wet over here, and it certainly can be at times. Although last summer we had a heat wave and it was completely the opposite, and again with the clay it completely cracked up and there was no grass growing whatsoever. So we ended up, the cows still went outside, but they ate through the silage plant pretty quickly over the summer, and then we had to start looking for extra forage. So that was one of our mistakes as over my dad, who would be very much a make sure you get as much forage as you possibly can in the clamps. Whereas we thought, well, summer we'll still be able to get through that. So it was an interesting challenge last year to keep the cows as healthy and the yield going.
Luckily, this year has been a bit easier, and the cows went out on in February, so that made life.
Polar opposite to last summer, and we've managed to do 2 cuts of silage already. We're about to cut our wheat probably in the next week or two to whole crop in the clamp as well, and no doubt we'll get a 3rd cut of silage. So we might not have enough space in the clamp for the silage this year, whereas last year it was completely empty. So again, I was explaining to the university group we had round, although climate change is there in the background as well, it is interesting to see if these sort of extremes of weather are going, is it just an extreme of weather, or is it a general change, or the seasons certainly seem to have sort of vanished slightly over here, and you seem to go from one extreme to the other of just a lot of rain or a lot of sunshine, and never really sort of the in between. I suppose we've had a fairly mild winter over here as well. That just makes the difference to the whole year of the farm as it does to the arable guys and all that. I mean, all the wheat crops are looking really nice over here, and they're going to kick off, I should think. So, I mean, it's not necessarily a good thing for them if it's all well. And but on our farm, it's I think we again with the processing, always wanted to do something there. So I think we chose the right thing to start with, and then we can also look at other products from pasteurising the milk as the sort of next one we're looking at is just going for cream separation and developing that.
We started doing milkshakes. Richard's wife Beth started milkshakes a few months ago, and they've been really successful and been so popular. So I think that's a brilliant start, and then we're looking into cream separation, and then who knows after that, maybe butter or something like that's what I'd like to do, but we'll see. But no, it's definitely going in the right direction at the moment, and we're really happy with the way Vine Farm Dairy is going. So yeah, very positive.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, y'all should definitely be very proud of where it's at right now. And yeah, those future plans sound really, really cool. If we're over there, we just went over there. My wife and I went over there to London, I think about 3 or 4 months ago, and it was beautiful. So if we ever go again, we'll stop up by your way and get some milk in the vending machine, which would be so cool.
Yeah, no, please do.
Absolutely.
With pleasure,
Yeah. All right. So you guys are on Instagram at Vine Farm Dairy, but if people want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We don't tend to do as much on Twitter, but we're certainly quite active on Facebook and Instagram. We've got a website as well, www.vinefarmdairy.co.uk.
We'll try and put small little videos on the Instagram and Facebook, mainly about sort of through the year and what's gone on at the farm. And
we want to be we want to be open. We want to show people what goes on.
So everyone's got a camera in their pocket nowadays, so it's quite easy for anyone at the farm who's working there that everyone's sort of taking a picture here and there, and then we can share that along the way. We are thinking of connecting with more schools, perhaps, hopefully, as again with the rise of possibly anti-farming sentiments around, that we could sort of connect with children early enough to sort of let them make their own decisions about how they feel about how food's produced.
And certainly Open Farm Sunday, I think we'll definitely do that again in the coming years. That was a really good day for us to let the public onto the farm.
And you never know, we might be exporting one day.
There you go. Well, if y'all export anytime soon, let me know and I will be on the lookout for it.
Good man. Thank you very much.
No problem. Well, Charlotte, James, thank you guys very much for being on the podcast. We wish you nothing but the best of luck, and we'll be on the lookout for your stuff on Instagram and Facebook and the website and everything.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for having us. It's great to be here.
Absolutely.